The way, the long journey to get justice for the murder of freedom fighter Nokuthula Simelane starts tomorrow. Her family has been looking for answers since her disappearance back in 1983. She went missing while on an ANC mission to South Africa from Swaziland. It's alleged she was captured and tortured until she died from her injuries. Her sister, Thembi Nkadimeng, joins us now in studio for a conversation. So we are set for a trial. It's been a long journey. I was looking at some of the papers. I think one of the cases in the High Court was filed as early as 2007. And here we are in 2022 on the verge of the possible start of the trial. Are we still on track for that trial to begin? And how much, hangs on this? How many of the questions you've had for 39 years are likely to be answered by this trial?
Well, it will answer quite a number of questions for me, my family, but also for her fellow comrades in the African National Congress, her university friends who, in a matter of a minute, she just got withdrawn from the University Society 2 weeks prior to graduation, by the way, for a social degree. But look, I've answered quite a lot of questions myself, and I no longer care whether my answers are right or wrong. For me, primary is to get the remains, if there are any. The methods which were used then sometimes used to dispose of the body in a way that you could not even be able, but to get closer in terms of understanding. After abduction and capture at Carlton Center, torture in a farm, then what? And we closed that part. But I deserve justice as a sister and as a South African. One, for being a law-abiding citizen. Follow the TRC. When it does not fulfill its own, then take its own act to court to demand justice. So that's what the 2007 case was about. We subjected to ourselves as a country, victims as we are called, to a fair justice to arrive at a closure of a loss of a family. And when we don't get that, the only thing we have is justice. Unfortunately, it has been delayed. I've lost no less than 5 witnesses through to ill health, death. The last one being Tumankos, who passed away, I think in November last year, where my sister was housed, arousing from Swaziland, a key witness. But I don't think I've fallen. It's no longer for me about whether they beat her and they killed her. They must tell me just what happened.
Yeah. So as far as I understand, there are 2 accused in the trial.
Yes, I lost 2. There were 4.
Originally there were 4. Now we remain with 2.
Yes.
By way of answers to the questions that you and other families have, how much do you believe these 2 how much of a key do you believe they have to answering some of your questions? I don't know if you understand, given their placing within the security branch infrastructure at the time.
Well, they are high. In fact, Kutsie, the one who I just received the message from my lawyers that he is sick, he can't come to court tomorrow. So we are billed for another postponement tomorrow instead of starting the case, was the head of the unit that was operating in Moroka police station, where she was arrested under and taken to a farm in the northwest, currently Limpopo, due to new demarcation. So they have the answer. He has the answer. The next one is Pretorius, the one remaining. The other one passed away, I think, and Khadebe passed away. But we still have about 4 or 5 who were also black officers who all received amnesty because the judges at the TRC felt they were truthful enough. And they're able to point us into key, important leads, which as a family and Foundation for Human Rights, Weber Wenzel, we then hired a private investigator to follow those leads when the state did not follow those leads. So that was the first greatest sense of betrayal, actually. Not to me, to Nokuthula and the MK people, that we subject ourselves to a process, and the process gives its promises, and it doesn't fulfill them.
Yeah. I don't know if I have time to throw this question to you because we are on standby for the president, but I'll be guided by the team. From a few days ago, we heard the NDPP, Shamila Batoyi, talking about, for instance, in the Craddock 4 case, that a decision on whether or not to prosecute will be announced within a matter of weeks, 4 to 6 weeks at the most.
I wouldn't waste time. I've lost confidence in them.
Yeah.
The very same 2007 case, it was not only a Nkadimeng case as in Simelane case. It was Simelane and the Craddock 4 wives. They fought for their own justice. Since 2007, that decision is only arrived at in 2022. That tells you Mrs. Goniwe is late. She died without knowing, without arriving at that decision. That 2007 decision was myself in court with the Craddock 4. 2007. We are only talking about a thinking, a thought of resolving, of taking a decision in 2022. That's scandalous.
Yeah. What has this absence of answers and closure done to you and the family?
It was interference by the state.
I mean, for you as a family.
Bad. To all families, in fact. I can actually think, bad as it is for my mother, she has somebody who assists her. How about a family that can afford private investigation? And there are many, 400 out of them, referred by the TRC to the police. They haven't moved an inch. So where are they, as me and you are sitting here talking about a trial that has been aided by financial aid and pro bono cases? They possibly are not lucky to have that pro bono assistance. What?
So as these matters play out in a criminal case where the state needs to prove its case beyond a reasonable doubt, I don't know what you know about, preparations for this upcoming trial now by way of ensuring that whatever evidence the state needs, we're talking here some 39 years later, and in many instances where there were conscious efforts to actually bury evidence and make sure that it doesn't come up. What is the prosecution telling you about that element of things, the burden of proof?
They believe they are ready to prosecute, though they announced the day before Abraham's then, before Patoche. I announced the day before I'd taken them back to court for not taking a decision on whether they are denying to prosecute or not. So I forced them to be ready. But I'm taking their word for it. They say they are ready to place the murder charges tomorrow in court in front of those two witnesses with the evidence that they've gathered themselves. But my family, together with the pro bono lawyers, were playing a watching brief. We'll be in court every day to see if the state really lives up to its readiness for the case. Because as I indicated earlier, we ran an investigation prior the state could. We forced the state to investigate and live by its obligations. Yeah. And today, at least for Nokuthula, let them go and investigate Stand-Up Papi. What happened to him? Let them finish Simpiwe Mtimkhulu. We have lost Ahmed Timol even after 35 years. Yes, we got into the inquest, but Rodriguez died before he was sentenced. So is that justice to the family? Unfortunately, he died with the truth. They're lucky they had the body because it was a claimed suicide. They released the body. But in others, Simpiwe Mtimkhulu's mom today still cry of the condition that his son was brought to him on a wheelchair. And nobody cares to respond to that question. Are the perpetrators still alive? Who's going to give me justice and answers that the two perpetrators who have died and their contribution? So was the TRC just an exercise? Let's just try and dust the table and move on. And I do believe if it was said like that, we possibly would have accepted it. We had no choice. We were called victims, not even victors. We didn't bring freedom.
Sure.
We are a consequence of how freedom was arrived at. It's okay for me. It was Nokuthula's choice to fight. I wouldn't have chosen anything for her. But I think one only thing I owe it to her is to give her dignity. In the farm, I'm told she was kept when she was spoiling herself. They used to put a plastic as a napkin for her. It's very degrading. I can live with that, but I can't live with the fact that I'm alive, I'm walking, and I'm unable to say to her, rest in peace, girl. The storm is over. That's what I want to say.
Yeah.
And that's what my mom wants to say. That's what my father died without even being able to say. That's what my brother, who sent her out, died without having said to her.
Yeah.
That's all what we want. No complication.
What will you say to someone who says there's been some progress? Understandably, you are disillusioned because of the path that the NPA and others initially took, the prosecution policy of 2005 that you successfully challenged, that you saw as introducing a prosecutorial amnesty via the back door in relation to the TRC processes. What will you say to someone who's watching and saying, well, in the last few months I've seen this announcement by Shamila Batoyi that there will be this decision on the CREDOC 4. I've seen COSAS 4 going to court, and even with the case of Ahmed Timol, at the point at which Rodriguez died, there was some movement. What will you say to someone who says the path can still be corrected?
Timol, the family was taking the NPA head-on. They prosecuted under pressure. CREDOC 4, under pressure. COSAS 4 is part of our victim group, under pressure. Malebane's family is in our victim group, still waiting. Nati, Biko, still waiting. I mean, the list is endless. Yeah. I'm just talking about those I can talk to and they're known, as you name them. Right? How about the 400 who have never had a thing? 39 years on. We're talking about the 1983 case. Yes, forget up to 1994. When you start the TRC, you make a commitment as a state to us as families. We listen to you. We give you our trust. We forgive. We bury the hatred. We become part and parcel of society to rebuild it. We do not conduct ourselves in any way that is against an agreement that was made on our behalf, and you still don't honor it. And you say I must be patient, and say because in 2021 and 2022 there's been some work that has been done 28 years on. The state has failed us.
Sure.
And has interfered in stopping, not once. In the case when I was challenging it, Vusi Pikoli did indicate in writing that what happened when he wanted to start the cases. Before we even challenged with the CREDOC 4, the backdoor prosecutorial police, where we were never consulted. We read about it like anybody else in the newspaper. I'm coming across this, I'm like, this is an offense to me, my mother and my family, and I'm asking their blessing to challenge it.
Lastly,
why did we have to do that?
Lastly, how perilous is a likely postponement of the case that's supposed to start tomorrow, in terms of the realities of course, of people being people who can suffer illness, incapacitation, and even death, given the number of people that have already passed on that you are counting? How perilous is it to the case?
Too grave.
The possibility of
Too
a
grave.
postponement?
It should have started yesterday. I can't even wait for tomorrow. So if tomorrow is still evasive, it's a bigger problem for me, even for the NPA itself, and anybody else who has an interest of listening and get to the bottom of what it is. But I also hope these are not just apparent cases of illness. They said they don't know what happened to her. They released it. They must come and be tested by the judge. They were not given amnesty. They should have been prosecuted. They were not prosecuted. I'm bringing them to a justice of South Africa, which we all have trust in. They must face the judge and say, we don't know. And then if they are believable, they walk for free.
All right, Thembi Nkadimeng, thank you for your time this afternoon. Of course, you will be joining me a bit later on in the eNCA corruption scorecard on a different capacity. That's Thembi Nkadimeng there talking to me about the trial around the killing of Nokuthula Simelane all those years ago, 39 years ago.